Welcome to the world of science fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss new stories. Enjoy the listening. The emergency lighting cast blood-red shadows across Jake's quarters as he bolted awake, hand already wrapped around the plasma pistol under his pillow. Something had triggered the Phoenix's security systems again. "Status," he growled, swinging his legs off the bed. "Perimeter breach in Cargo Bay 3. The ship's AI responded in its usual monotone. Humanoid biosignature detected." Jake pulled on his boots, not bothering with a shirt. The climate controls in his grounded starship kept the temperature perfect, even as Aiden's harsh winds howled outside. "Just one?" "Affirmative. Female. Unusual biological readings." "Aren't they always?" He checked his weapon's charge. Full. After 5 years of hunting artifacts on this dying world, he'd learned that unusual usually meant trouble. The metallic corridors echoed his footsteps as he moved silently toward Cargo Bay 3. The red emergency lights made the worn deck plates look like they were bleeding. His latest find, an ancient energy core, sat secured in his personal vault. If this was another attempt to steal it. A shadow moved at the far end of the bay. Jake raised his weapon. "Don't move. Hands where I can see them." "Please," a feminine voice called out. "I mean no harm." The figure stepped into the light and Jake's breath caught. She was tall, athletic, and absolutely stunning, with skin the color of emeralds and eyes that seemed to hold entire galaxies. Her form-fitting bodysuit left little to the imagination. "I'm Nera," she said, raising her hand slowly, "and I need your help." Jake kept his weapon trained on her despite her disarming smile. "Breaking into my ship is an interesting way to ask for help." "I apologize for the intrusion," she said, taking another step forward, her movements graceful and deliberate. "But I had no choice. They're watching the main entrance." "They? The ones who want me dead?" Her galaxy eyes darkened. "I've been running for days." Jake studied her carefully. Her exotic beauty was distracting, but years of dealing with cons and thieves had taught him to look deeper. There was real fear behind her confident facade. "Why me?" he asked, lowering his weapon slightly. "Because you're like me, an outsider, and because—" She hesitated, biting her lower lip. "I need to perform the survival ritual with you." Jake couldn't help but laugh. "That's a new one. Look, if this is about the energy core—" "I don't care about artifacts," Nera interrupted, taking another step closer. "The ritual is real. Without it, I'll die, and so might everyone else on this planet." "Everyone might die?" Jake arched an eyebrow. "That's a hell of a pickup line." Nera's lips curved into a half smile, but her eyes remained serious. "I wish I was joking. The reality rift is growing stronger. I can feel it." She shuddered, wrapping her arms around herself. "And I can feel that you're different. Special." Jake holstered his weapon but maintained his distance. "Special how?" "Your energy signature. It's unlike anything I've encountered on this world." She tilted her head, studying him. "You survived something impossible, didn't you?" The old scar on his chest seemed to burn at her words. Jake forced himself to stay casual. "Lady, everyone on Aiden has survived something impossible. It's practically a requirement for living here." A distant explosion rocked the ship, making them both stumble. Jake instinctively reached out to steady Nera, and the moment their skin touched, an electric current seemed to surge through him. His enhanced reflexes, a souvenir from that impossible survival, suddenly felt sharper, more controlled. Nera gasped, her galaxy eyes widening. "You felt that too." "Phoenix, status report," Jake called out, reluctantly letting go of her arm. "Multiple energy signatures approaching from the northwest. Weapons detected. Unknown technology." "They found me," Nera whispered, fear cracking through her composed exterior. "Please, we don't have much time." "The ritual is supposedly going to save everyone?" Jake moved to a nearby console, bringing up external cameras. Dark figures were approaching through the perpetual dust storm outside, carrying what looked like ancient tech merged with modern weapons. Want to tell me what's really going on? The full truth would take too long to explain, and you probably wouldn't believe me anyway. Nera stepped closer, her presence making his skin tingle. But I swear I'm not here to hurt you or steal from you. This ritual, it's not what you think. It's about connection, energy transfer, survival. Another explosion. Closer this time. The ship's shields flickered. They're using rift-strike weapons, Nera said, her voice tight. Ancient technology that can tear through any defense. Jake cursed under his breath. He'd heard rumors about rift-strike tech, but had never seen it in action. And these people? Hunting. You want to either capture me or kill me. I'm not sure which would be worse. She reached out, placing her hand on his bare chest, right over his scar. The surge of energy was immediate, intoxicating. Help me, Jake, please. Jake's mind raced, evaluating options as rapidly as his enhanced reflexes allowed. The beautiful stranger was definitely dangerous, but so were the heavily armed hunters approaching his ship. And that energy surge when they touched. Phoenix, initiate Defense Protocol Delta and give me a secure route to the panic room. Acknowledged. Southeast corridor remains clear. Nera's face lit up with relief, but Jake grabbed her wrist before she could move. This doesn't mean I trust you, but right now, those guys out there are the bigger threat. Fair enough. Her fingers intertwined with his, sending another jolt through his system. Lead the way. They sprinted through the corridors as the ship's automated defenses engaged. The sound of plasma fire and explosions echoed through the hall. Jake led them through a series of maintenance passages, taking a circuitous route to throw off any pursuers who might breach the ship. The panic room? Nera asked between breaths as they ran. Reinforced walls, independent life support, and... Jake grinned. A few surprises I've collected over the years. They reached a seemingly ordinary wall panel. Jake pressed his palm against it, and a hidden door slid open. He ushered Nera inside, just as another explosion rocked the ship. Shield integrity at 47%, Phoenix announced. Multiple breaches detected in the outer hull. The panic room was small, but well equipped. Ancient artifacts and modern weapons lined the walls. A comfortable bed occupied one corner, something Jake had installed during previous long sieges. Impressive collection, Nera said, examining a crystalline device that pulsed with inner light. You really are a serious artifact hunter, and you're still avoiding my questions. Jake sealed the door and activated additional security measures. We're safe for now. Time to talk. Nera turned to face him, and for a moment her eyes seemed to swirl with actual starlight. The ritual isn't just about physical survival, it's about maintaining balance. The reality rift is drawn to certain energies, like the one you carry inside you from your accident, and the one I was born with. Born with? Jake leaned against a console, studying her. Or engineered with? A flicker of surprise crossed her face. You're sharper than most. 5 years on Aridin teaches you to spot the difference between natural and artificial, even when it's beautifully packaged. Nera stepped closer, each movement deliberate and graceful. You're right. I was created, engineered, to interact with the rift. But what I feel... She placed her hand on his chest again. This is real. The energy between us is real. The ship shuddered under another assault. Hull breach on deck 2, Phoenix reported. Intruders detected. Jake's enhanced senses were screaming, every nerve ending alive with the energy flowing between them. This ritual of yours, what exactly does it involve? A merging of energies. Her galaxy eyes met his, drawing him in. Your survival changed you, made you something more than human. My creators made me to channel such power. Together, The next explosion felt distant as Nera pressed against him. Their lips met, and the world seemed to shift. Energy coursed through Jake's body like liquid fire, but instead of pain, he felt power, raw and intoxicating. His heightened abilities amplified exponentially. Their clothes fell away as urgent need overwhelmed caution. Each touch was electric, each kiss a surge of power. The hunters' explosions became a distant symphony, accompanying their passion. Nera's green skin seemed to glow from within, starlight dancing in her eyes as they moved together. Time lost meaning. There was only the rhythm of their bodies, the flow of energy between them, building to something beyond physical pleasure. When the crescendo hit, Jake felt like he could see the rift itself, a tear in reality that pulsed in sync with their merged energies. Afterwards they lay entwined, both trembling from the intensity of the experience. Jake could still feel the power humming through his veins, his enhanced abilities sharper than ever before. "That was," he started. "The ritual," Nera finished, tracing the scar on his chest. "But also something more, something unexpected." A massive explosion rocked the ship, closer than any before. "Warning," Phoenix announced. "Rift strike weapons detected on multiple decks. Panic room location compromised." Jake rolled to his feet, his movements impossibly fluid and precise. He could sense the hunters now, feel their positions through the enhanced awareness Nera had somehow unlocked in him. "We need to move," he said quickly, gathering their clothes. "They're using the rift's energy to track us." Nera dressed swiftly, her earlier vulnerability replaced by determined focus. "They'll never stop hunting me, but now that we've connected, they'll hunt you too. Then we better make sure we're the ones doing the hunting." Jake armed himself with several artifacts from his collection. "Ready to tell me the whole truth about who you are and what's really happening to this planet?" "Yes." Nera checked the crystalline device she'd noticed earlier. "But you might wish I hadn't." The panic room's door began to glow red as rift strike energy ate through its defenses. Jake and Nera stood ready, their merged powers humming between them like a live wire. The hunt was about to begin. The rift strike beam carved through the panic room's door like plasma through ice. Jake grabbed Nera's hand, their combined energy surging as they dove through his pre-planned escape hatch moments before the hunters breached the room. "Emergency protocols engaged," Phoenix announced as they slid down the maintenance shaft, initiating ship-wide electromagnetic pulse. They landed in the underground hangar, where Jake kept his rover, a heavily modified terrain vehicle built to withstand Aridan's hostile environment. The EMP would buy them time, but not much. "You know how to drive?" Jake asked, tossing Nera a breathing mask as he grabbed supplies. Her galaxy eyes sparkled with amusement despite their situation. "I was engineered to be perfect, remember? Though I prefer more elegant modes of transportation." "Well, your elegance will have to settle for survival today." Jake jumped into the driver's seat, his enhanced reflexes making the complex startup sequence feel like second nature. "Where are we heading?" Nera settled beside him, the mask covering her lower face, but doing nothing to dim her beauty. "The ancient citadel. It's where I was born. The answers you want are there." The hangar doors opened to Aridan's perpetual storm. Red lightning split the sky, illuminating the swirling dust clouds that made the planet's surface nearly uninhabitable. Jake gunned the engine, and they shot out into the chaos. "Multiple vehicles in pursuit," Nera reported, checking the sensors. "They're using the rift's energy to track us." "Good thing I've got a few tricks for that." Jake flipped a switch, activating one of his more exotic acquisitions. The rover's hull began to resonate with a frequency that disrupted rift signatures. "Tell me about these hunters while we drive." "They call themselves the Guardians." Nera's voice turned bitter. "They believe they're protecting Aridan by preserving the ancient ways. In reality, they're just afraid of change. And you represent change? I represent everything they fear, a fusion of ancient power and new possibilities. They'd rather see the planet die than evolve. Jake swerved around a massive crystal formation that hadn't been there yesterday, another sign of the reality rift's growing influence. And the Citadel? What will we find there? The truth about what I am, about what they made me for. She paused, looking at him. And maybe why you survived what should have killed you. The rover crested a ridge, revealing a valley ringed with reality distortions. The air itself seemed to twist and fold, creating impossible geometric patterns. At the centre, barely visible through the storm, rose the ancient citadel, a structure that defied conventional architecture, its spires spiralling in ways that hurt the eyes to follow. "That's different," Jake muttered, adjusting their course to avoid the worst distortions. "The rift is stronger here." Nera's hand found his arm, and immediately his enhanced senses sharpened. He could feel the wrongness in the air, see the patterns of energy flowing around them. The citadel was built to contain it, but something went wrong. A massive bolt of red lightning struck nearby, creating a temporary window in the dust storm. Through it, Jake spotted their pursuers, 3 heavily armed vehicles, their hulls crackling with ancient tech. "They're gaining," he said, pushing the rover harder. "Those are military-grade engines. We can't outrun them forever." "We don't have to." Nera pointed to a barely visible path that wound between reality distortions. "The Citadel's defensive systems are still active. If we can reach the inner sanctum, if those defenses are active, won't they target us too?" Nera's smile was visible even through the mask. "They won't target me. I'm keyed to their systems. It's part of what I am." Jake took the path, weaving between patches of twisted space where reality itself seemed to bubble and fold. Their pursuers fell behind, unable to navigate the dangerous terrain as precisely. "Speaking of what you are," Jake began. Jake glanced at her. "Time for some answers. The truth, Nera, all of it." She was quiet for a long moment, watching the citadel grow larger through the windscreen. The ancients discovered the reality rift centuries ago. They learned to harness its power, built their civilization around it. But the rift was unstable, growing stronger, threatening to tear their world apart. "So they created you? To control it? To interface with it?" "They took their most advanced genetic engineering, combined it with rift energy, created something new." She looked at her hands, her green skin seeming to pulse with inner light. "I was supposed to be perfect, their masterpiece, but something went wrong." "Wrong how?" Jake swerved around a floating chunk of landscape that had been twisted into a Mobius strip. "Instead of controlling the rift, I resonated with it, made it stronger." Pain flashed across her face. "Every moment I exist, the rift grows more unstable, but I'm also the only one who can potentially fix it." A blast from their pursuers struck nearby, warping reality in its wake. The rover's systems flickered. "The Guardians believe the only solution is my death," Nera continued. "But they're wrong. The ancients left another way, a way to channel the energy properly." She touched his scar again. "That's why I needed you. Your survival changed you, made you compatible with rift energy. Together, we might have a chance." They reached the base of the citadel. Up close, its impossible architecture was even more disturbing. Sections of the building phasing in and out of existence. Corridors that turned back on themselves in endless loops. "Phoenix," Jake activated his comm. "Status report." Static crackled. Then his ship's AI responded, "Ship secure but heavily damaged. Multiple hostiles retreating." "Warning, massive energy surge detected at your location." The ground trembled around them, the reality distortions intensifying. "They're using rift strike weapons to destabilize the area," Nera warned. "We need to get inside, now." Jake parked the rover in what appeared to be a stable pocket of space. "Any other surprises I should know about?" "Probably several." Nera stepped out, her movements graceful despite the chaos around them. The ancients weren't exactly forthcoming with their plans. They sprinted toward the citadel's entrance, a towering archway that seemed to exist in multiple places at once. Nera pressed her hand to a crystalline panel, and patterns of light raced across the structure's surface. "Welcome home, creation," a voice echoed from nowhere and everywhere. The entrance solidified into a single location, revealing a corridor that stretched impossibly deep into the structure. Behind them, their pursuers' vehicles crested the ridge. "You trust me?" Nera asked, holding out her hand. Jake looked at her, this beautiful, dangerous mystery who'd crashed into his life mere hours ago, who might be either salvation or destruction for an entire world. "Not entirely," he admitted, taking her hand anyway, "but I trust that you believe what you're saying. And right now, that's enough." They stepped into the citadel together as reality itself seemed to hold its breath. The citadel's interior defied physics. Corridors branched in impossible directions. Rooms existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Without Nera's guidance, Jake would have been lost instantly. "The ancients built this place as both laboratory and fortress," she explained as they navigated the maze. "Every chamber is connected to the rift, channeling and studying its energy." A distant explosion echoed through the structure. The Guardians had breached the outer defences. "Here." Nera led them into a vast circular chamber. Crystalline pillars pulsed with energy, and in the centre a column of pure rift energy stretched from floor to ceiling. The heart of everything. Jake's enhanced senses were overwhelmed. The power in the room made his scar burn, his abilities fluctuating wildly. "What is this place?" "Where I was born." Nera approached a control panel, her fingers dancing across its surface. Ancient displays flickered to life, showing diagrams and calculations beyond human comprehension. "And where they planned to sacrifice me if I failed." Heavy footsteps echoed from the corridor. The Guardians were close. "Failed at what exactly?" Jake positioned himself between Nera and the entrance, weapons ready. "To become their perfect vessel, a living conduit for the rift's power," her voice cracked. "But instead of channeling the energy, I amplify it. My very existence makes the rift stronger, more unstable." The first Guardian appeared in the doorway, a figure in ancient armour merged with modern tech. Jake fired, but the shot warped around them, reality bending to their will. "Stand down," the Guardian commanded, voice distorted by their helm. "The abomination must be terminated. The calculations are clear. Her death will seal the rift." "Your calculations are incomplete." Nera's eyes blazed with starlight. "There's another way." "The risk is too great." More Guardians filed in, weapons charged. "Your existence threatens everything. Better death than watching our world tear itself apart." Jake felt Nera's hand on his shoulder, power surging between them. "There's always another choice," he said, understanding flowing through their connection. "You're so focused on ancient solutions that you can't see new possibilities." The artifact hunter speaks of things he cannot understand. The lead Guardian advanced. "This ends now." Reality itself seemed to bend around them as the Guardians attacked. Reality warped and twisted as the Guardians' first assault hit. Jake's enhanced reflexes, amplified by Nera's presence, let him dodge the worst of it, but the chamber itself began to fracture under the strain. "The rift is destabilizing." Nera's hands flew across the ancient controls. "They're going to tear the citadel apart." Jake fired back, his weapons enhanced by the ambient energy, but the Guardian's armor absorbed each shot. "Any bright ideas?" "Just one." Nera's galaxy eyes met his, filled with determination and regret. But you won't like it. Before Jake could respond, she sprinted toward the central column of rift energy. The Guardians immediately ceased their attack. "So, you finally accept your destiny?" the lead Guardian said, lowering their weapon. "A noble choice." "No!" Jake moved to stop her, but reality twisted around him, holding him in place. "Nira, don't! It's the only way." She reached the column's edge, her green skin glowing with inner light. "My existence destabilizes the rift. My death will seal it. Simple mathematics. Mathematics can't measure everything." Jake strained against the warped space holding him. "What about what we discovered?" "The connection between us? That's exactly why I have to do this." A tear slid down her cheek. "You showed me what it means to be more than what I was created to be. Now let me choose my own fate." The Guardians began a low chant, their ancient tech resonating with the chamber's energy. The rift column pulsed brighter, but something wasn't right. Jake's scar burned with increasing intensity, and through their connection, he could feel Nira's energy changing. This wasn't just about sacrifice. There was something more. "Wait!" He channeled every ounce of his enhanced abilities, pushing against the reality distortion. "Nira, remember what you said about amplifying the rift's power?" "What about it?" Nira paused at the column's edge, her hand inches from the swirling energy. "If you amplify it—" Jake fought harder against his bonds, feeling them weaken as he channeled their shared power. "What if that's not a flaw? What if it's the key?" The lead Guardian stepped forward. "Enough! The abomination must be sacrificed. She's not an abomination." Jake broke free, the reality distortion shattering around him. "She's evolution, the next step, and you're too afraid to see it." He reached Nira just as she touched the column. The moment his hand closed around her wrist, their combined energy exploded through the chamber. The rift energy responded, not with destruction, but with resonance. "Impossible," the Guardian whispered. Nira's eyes widened with understanding. "The amplification, it's not just making the rift stronger, it's making it more malleable. Jake, we can reshape it." The chamber trembled as reality itself seemed to flex around them. Through their connection, Jake could feel the true nature of Nira's power, not to contain the rift, but to guide it, to evolve it. "The ancients were wrong," he said, pulling her close. "They tried to control the rift, to force it into submission, but it needs to grow, to change. Like me." "Like us," Nira whispered, her hand finding his scar. Their energies merged completely, creating a feedback loop with the rift column. The Guardians raised their weapons, but it was too late. Power surged through the chamber, through the entire citadel, but instead of destroying it, transformed reality ripples. Smooth distortion stabilized into new patterns. The rift wasn't sealing, it was evolving. "What have you done?" The lead Guardian's voice shook. "We did what the ancients couldn't imagine," Nira said, her voice resonating with newfound power. "Instead of fighting the rift, we're helping it grow." The chamber had transformed around them. The chaotic energy now flowed in controlled patterns, creating stable pathways through reality. The Guardians' weapons powered down, useless against the new order. The planet— Jake could feel it through their connection. "It's healing itself." "Impossible." The lead Guardian removed their helm, revealing an aged face marked with ancient tech implants. "Our calculations were based on old assumptions." Nira stepped forward, still holding Jake's hand. "The rift isn't a weapon to be controlled or a threat to be contained. It's a doorway to evolution. My flaw wasn't a mistake. It was the next step." Outside, the perpetual storm was clearing. For the first time in generations, through the citadel's crystalline walls, they could see Aradan's sky. Not the sickly red they'd known, but a deep purple streaked with ribbons of stabilized rift energy. "Your mission is over," Jake told the Guardians. "The world you were protecting has already changed. The question is, will you change with it?" The lead Guardian looked at their ancient weapons, now dark and powerless. "What would you have us do?" "Help us understand." Nera's galaxy eyes softened. "There's so much knowledge in your tradition, so much wisdom in the old ways, but it needs to grow, to adapt, like I did." The Guardians lowered their weapons, looking to their leader. After a long moment, they nodded. Perhaps it is time for new Guardians, new traditions. Jake felt Nera's grip tighten. Through their connection, he sensed something different in her energy pattern, something new. Speaking of new things, she turned to him, a smile playing on her emerald lips. Our connection created more than just stability. Jake's enhanced senses focused on her abdomen, detecting the tiny spark of combined energy growing there. His heart skipped. Jake's world shifted again, but this time from pure emotion. "You're pregnant." Nera's galaxy eyes sparkled. "Apparently, our ritual did more than stabilize the rift. We created something entirely new." The remaining Guardians murmured among themselves. Their ancient prophecies had never predicted this. A child born of rift energy and enhanced human DNA. Jake found himself dropping to one knee, pulling something from his pocket, a small artifact he'd found months ago. A ring made of an unknown material that seemed to capture starlight. "I've been carrying this around, trying to understand its purpose," he said, looking up at Nera. "Now I know. It was waiting for you." "Are you seriously proposing in the middle of a reality-altering event?" Nera's laugh echoed through the chamber. "Seems appropriate. We're all about defying expectations, aren't we?" "Yes," she said, both to his proposal and his statement, pulling him up into a kiss that sent ripples of energy through the stabilized rift. 3 months later, the Phoenix rose from its landing pad, fully repaired and upgraded with modified ancient tech. The ship's hull now rippled with the same stable energy patterns that marked Aiden's new landscape. In the cockpit, Jake piloted while Nera monitored the rift patterns through their enhanced systems. Her slight baby bump was just beginning to show. "Phoenix, status report," Jake called out. "All systems optimal. Rift drive synchronized. Course plotted for the outer colonies." "Ready to find more answers?" Jake asked. "There must be other sites out there, other pieces of your history to uncover." "Ready for anything," she replied, her hand resting on her stomach. "As long as we're together." The Phoenix lifted into Aiden's transformed atmosphere. Below them, the ancient citadel stood as a beacon of change, its impossible architecture now a bridge between old and new. The former Guardians had become teachers, helping others understand and adapt to their evolved world. "You know," Nera said as they broke orbit, "for someone who hunts ancient artifacts, you're surprisingly good at making new things." "And for someone engineered to be perfect," Jake smiled, "you're surprisingly human." The Phoenix engaged its rift drive, creating a controlled reality tunnel through space as they accelerated into their next adventure. The stars themselves seemed to dance in Nera's eyes, a promise of endless possibilities ahead. Epilogue. 5 years later, the Phoenix's observation deck offered a panoramic view of Aiden's transformed surface. The once deadly storms had given way to spectacular auroras of stabilized rift energy, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. Jake stood at the window, watching his 4-year-old daughter, Nova, practicing her abilities. Her skin was a softer shade of green than her mother's, and her eyes held the same galaxy-like sparkle. Small objects floated around her as she giggled, manipulating reality with the innocent joy only a child could possess. "Daddy, look!" Nova exclaimed, creating a tiny controlled rift that sparkled like a soap bubble. "I made a star." "That's beautiful, sweetheart," Jake smiled, his enhanced senses letting him feel the perfect stability of her creation. She had inherited both their gifts, but seemed to understand them with an intuition that surpassed even Nera's knowledge. "She's getting stronger every day," Nera said, entering the deck with their second child, a 6-month-old boy named Leo, cradled in her arms. His skin was human-toned, but would shimmer with green highlights when he laughed. The former guardians had become something like godparents to both children, their ancient knowledge helping to guide the first generation of natural rift-born humans. The kids were living proof that evolution wasn't something to be feared, but celebrated. "Phoenix," Nova called out to the ship's AI. "Play the star song." The observation deck filled with a gentle melody, a combination of ancient harmonics and the natural resonance of stabilized rift energy that Nova had somehow taught the ship to replicate. Jake pulled Nera and Leo close, watching their daughter dance among her floating lights. They had discovered dozens of ancient sites over the years, helped other worlds understand and adapt to their own reality rifts. But this, their family, their home among the stars, was their greatest adventure. "Happy?" Nera asked, though she could feel the answer through their ever-strengthening bond. "Perfect," Jake replied, kissing her softly, as Nova's laughter echoed through the ship, and baby Leo cooed at the lights dancing overhead. "Though I'm still waiting for you to teach me that trick with the artificial gravity." "Some mysteries have to remain, my love," Nera winked. "We've got to save something for the next 5 years." Above them, the stars continued their eternal dance, witnesses to a love that had not just saved a world, but transformed it, creating a future brighter than any ancient prophecy could have predicted. And somewhere in the infinite expanse of space, new adventures waited for them, for their children, and for all those ready to embrace the beautiful uncertainty of evolution. The real end. Sometimes the greatest discoveries come not from controlling the chaos around us, but from learning to dance with it. In a universe where reality itself can bend and twist, perhaps the most profound truth is that evolution, be it personal, societal, or cosmic, rarely follows our carefully laid plans. We often seek to contain what we don't understand, to force the unknown into familiar patterns. But true growth, like the reality rift, requires us to embrace transformation rather than fear it. It asks us to question whether our perceived flaws might actually be doorways to something greater. What Jake and Nera discovered wasn't just a way to stabilize a physical phenomenon. They found that connection, understanding, and acceptance could transform not only themselves, but the very fabric of their world. Their story reminds us that sometimes the most powerful solutions come not from fighting against who we are, but from having the courage to become who we might be. In the end, the greatest adventures aren't about finding artifacts of the past or even glimpsing visions of the future. They're about those moments when we dare to reach across the rifts that separate us from each other, from ourselves, from our potential, and discover that what we thought were boundaries were really just beginnings. The stars are still dancing. The story continues. And somewhere in the infinite possibilities ahead, there's a version of ourselves waiting to evolve. The only question is, are we ready to embrace the transformation? From the Chronicles of Araden.